What's up everyone, Vu of NVU Films, and I am back with another idiotic video for you to watch. And today I have another tube douche review of the DJI RONIN SC2 or DJI RSC2, whatever you want to call it. And yes, this is the cheaper version of the new DJI gimbals. This is the poor, cheap, douchebag Craigslist or thumbtack video shooter that doesn't get paid a lot, so could only afford the $4.99 version of the gimbal, or aka the YouTube douchebag version, who only has under 8,000 subscribers and needs some more ad revenue because all of his videos are demonetized. Please subscribe. Links in the description below. Click those affiliate links, etc., etc. That would help me out a lot. With that being said, this is a great gimbal. I highly recommend you buy it. Till next time, I'm just kidding. So yes, this is a great gimbal. And do I recommend it? Yes, I do. And I'll let you know exactly why in a minute. But firstly, I just want to talk about a few things that I've noticed using this gimbal that, you know, it's a little bit iffy, can be better in some aspects. So let's get to it. Firstly, let's go ahead and mount this real quick with a Sony a7S III with a 24-70 Sigma DG-DN. DN stands for D's Nuts lens. I'll be right back. And I'm back. This gimbal is fully balanced. And I'm going to talk about my first pain point with this gimbal. This thing always has to be calibrated. Pretty much mount and balance it. I have to calibrate it. That takes about 30 seconds or so. I use it for however I want. And let's say I turn it off and unmount it. And in theory, after you use it, let's say I use some handheld shooting, I come back, I put it back in here, should be balanced. And I would say, generally speaking, yes, it is balanced unless, you know, something had shifted. Sometimes this little plate down here gets shifted around and it gets slightly unbalanced, but whatever. Turn it back on. You should be good to go. But in my use, I shot a wedding with it. I shot engagement session with it. I shot real estate with it. Sometimes it starts to have like a little bit of vibration again. It's very slight. You can kind of feel it when you're bending down like this, doing like this kind of angle action. And you could kind of feel this little bit of vibration, this little bit of this whirring sound from the motor, and you have to calibrate it again, which is kind of a pain in the butt considering you should be able to just unmount the quick release, use your camera for however you want, put it back on, and then be good to go. But you always have to calibrate it. Unlike a more legitimately powerful gimbal, such as the Zhiyun Crane 2S, I could literally mount and balance one lens, and I mount and balance another lens, and another lens, and another lens, and I would never have to calibrate this gimbal. It is just so strong, it doesn't even matter. Versus this gimbal, strong motor, but for some reason is very sensitive to any bit of slight weight changes, slight unbalance, whatever you want to call it. It needs to be recalibrated almost every time you use it. That's just from my experience. I'm not the type of reviewer that goes in depth to all these little like specs and knickknacks and things like that. I'm very much a real world review, as many of my subscribers know. I buy things, I use them, I shoot with them on professional shoots. I don't just get products for review it that one time, and that is it. I actually use these gimbals all the time, and then I come up with a conclusion of what I feel about it. Second issue, this little unlock thing here is cool, you know, to like fold the gimbal or whatever. But a feature that some people had mentioned, including myself, you could use it as underslung or whatever. That is largely a gimmick because I found myself never wanting to do this or needing to do this at all. It would be very cumbersome to do so in the middle of a shoot, just as I'm trying to do now. And there's actually a little like tripod mount here where you could actually just take this little tripod piece out and then, good Lord, this is a heavy setup, and put it like so right here, and you kind of have yourself a little underslung handle. Let me just loosen this up a little bit. And as you can see already how cumbersome it is to just, this is something you'd have to decide that you want to do from the get-go, not in the middle of the shoot. You can do it, but I just don't see myself doing it because it's quite cumbersome. And if you want to like ever switch back to your normal inverted mode, it takes some time. Got to unlock, put it back, lock it up. And there you have it. In the few shoots that I have done with this gimbal, I never did it one time. If I wanted to go low, I just simply went down like that. And that is that. So kind of gimmicky in that regard. However, it is useful for when you're using it just to fold up the gimbal to put away. So that is what that is good for. But in terms of actual real world usage of shooting, that's not really a go. Another thing too is this obviously lacks the touchscreen because it's a cheap D-bag model of the DJI gimbals. And yes, it's pretty decent enough to just kind of navigate it like this just by turning the wheel. But I have found it to, take some time to go through the menu, trying to find what you want to look for, different modes, etc., without having to go through your cell phone. I've used other gimbals for Feiyutech and Juin gimbals, and I found that the Feiyutech touchscreen modes for like even as cheap as those gimbals are, like $300 gimbals, their touchscreen is a lot more intuitive, easy to find things. You want to get into like Inception mode, the douchebag mode that no one uses ever except for when they review it. They have that one quick transition shot of the Inception. It's a lot easier to find than it is in here. There's just minor nuances of this menu that is kind of a bit cumbersome. Luckily, once you set it and you're doing a shoot, let's say you're shooting a wedding or what have you, you're going to use a couple modes, pan, follow mode, maybe POV mode, and that's it. And, you just hit it by going through these mode dials here. So not a big deal, just something of note. If you want to change menu items on the fly, this is a bit cumbersome. But overall, the performance of the gimbal is great. I think, it is stable enough. Is it as stable as something as strong as a Crane 2S from Juin? Of course not. The Crane 2S, although a much heavier gimbal, it just could handle more weight. Pretty much as heavy as I would go ever in my use, because I use Sony a7S III, and my most versatile lens is this 24-70. So it's probably as heavy as I would go, and this handles it fine. No issues there. Footage overall looks quite stable. There may be some, issues here with some jerkiness, but that could be user error, or the fact that, the gimbal, like any other gimbal, is not perfect, but is not something that will destroy your shoot. It's not something that will be like a complete deal breaker in terms of the image that you end up getting using this gimbal. I think footage is fine. Again, is it as good as something as a Crane 2S? No. But again, the Crane 2S is bigger, heavier, $100 more, but just overall the stronger, more smoother gimbal. But this is obviously a lot more compact. You could fold it down, put it away in your bag, no issues. And it's just less than half the weight. Very lightweight to carry. We use it. I used it for about a 9-hour wedding shoot. Not heavy at all. I walked around New York City with it to film an engagement shoot. No problem. Not heavy at all. It didn't weigh me down when I needed to. I just folded it back up and put it in my backpack. And my backpack is not even a big backpack. I have a Wandered Duo backpack. I think that's what it's called. And that backpack is incredibly small. I could just lock it up, put it away. One thing of note though, when you want to lock this up and put it into your backpack, in theory, yeah, that sounds great. And it is great that you could fold it up and put it away. But it kind of defeats the purpose of being able to just take it out and mounting the quick release plate here onto the gimbal immediately and have it balanced, because in order for this to be super compact, you still got to take off this tripod and you got to obviously fold it. Not the biggest of problems. The issue is you are going to have to take off this little plate here. So you got to take this plate off like so to get it nice and flat. You put it in your bag, you take it out of your bag, and then of course you're gonna have to put this on, rebalance the whole gimbal with this. Yes, you can remember the numbers, and if you are as experienced of a gimbal user as I am, you know, for some reason, sometimes it's battery, whatever, it doesn't always match up. You could say line it up with 6, and then you line it up with 6, and for some reason it is not really perfectly balanced. It's probably usable, but not perfect. So you're gonna have to do some amount of rebalancing, and you got to screw the tripod back on. So there is that. If you're shooting and you know you're about to shoot in another 10-20 minutes, maybe don't put it in your backpack. Maybe just leave it as is and just be ready to shoot the next scene or whatever it is that you're doing. Slap that back in. So overall, I think at the $500 price point, I think between $400 to $500, you probably can't get a better compact gimbal. Packable, able to travel. The features is pretty much as many features as any other gimbal. There might be other nuanced features in there that plenty of our reviewers have talked about, but the reality is the overall majority of gimbal users use this thing for one thing. Mount a camera on there and you shoot with it to get stable footage. And for that, this gimbal is a great gimbal. Do I recommend it? Yes, I do. Obviously, if you want a more powerful gimbal, there's the Zhiyun Crane 2S. And then there's the bigger brother of this, which is the Ronin S2. And the reason why I'm not going to buy a Ronin S2, and I may not even review it, is because I'm, one, a douchebag YouTuber that, DJI is not going to send me the gimbal to review. And I have to buy it myself. And two, $849 for a gimbal in this day and age, 2020, with all of the available gimbals out there, I think it's a bit overpriced. Yes, the Ronin S, very light. It's just as light as this, and it could have a pretty decent payload, but there's some issues I notice with the plate and the amount of adjustments compared to something like the Crane 2S, which has a really big space, multiple different adjustment axes and all that stuff. It can handle the same or more weight, but also has more room to balance bigger cinema cameras for only $599. That's just my opinion. You can take that with a grain of salt. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. I'm just telling you my opinion on the matter. You decide for yourself. So yeah, I really do not know what else to say about this gimbal other than this will be the gimbal I'll be using most of the time, all the time on my shoots going forward, unless something drastic happens in the gimbal market. But right now, in terms of just size, usability, balance ability in terms of what it could balance, and price, I think this is a fantastic gimbal if you are in the market for a gimbal. If you have a Gajun Weebill S, would I go out of my way to upgrade to this gimbal? That's a tough one. If it was me, yes, because the Weebill S has some rickety rickshaw China cheap qualities to it that I just can't get past. This is a more robustly built gimbal for sure, for like maybe under $100 more. So if you have the means, if you want to upgrade a gimbal, I would go ahead and go with this. Some people may complain that the battery is not detachable. It's like an internal battery and you have to remember to recharge it every time. I shot 3 shoots on one battery, and that's not an issue. But you could also just mount a like a battery brick, any type of battery brick that you charge like a cell phone with, and you can just plug it right into USB-C, and you could use that external battery plugged into this and have a very, very, very long battery life where you don't have to worry about the battery at all. So for me, the whole like internal battery thing for this gimbal never been an issue. Matter of fact, the older SC, when I had it, I was running low on battery one time, and I just plugged in my cell phone battery brick, and it started working perfectly fine. Shot the rest of the night, no problem. So yeah, no issues there. Overall, DJI RONIN SC, great gimbal. DJI, great job with this gimbal. Priced right, built nicely. So yeah, hope you found this video entertaining and helpful. And if you want to see more, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, lighten up.